let's talk about grounding exercises and grounding practices and things like that. While they have its place, I really want to caution you to not use them in a way so that it results into bypassing or you making a kind of bit of a detour on your healing journey, right? Because especially for people with PTSD, we often talk about grounding exercises, and specific in our case, I think it, or for myself, I used it a lot when having flashbacks and nightmares, right? When you're really waking up, when it feels like you're reliving a past experience in the now, right? When you completely forget where you are and that you're in an adult body, and for me, it was even in a different country, right? A different place and things like that. It's just yeah, flashbacks or nightmares can be really, really intense. And having grounding techniques in those moments to help you to come back at least with one foot into the here and now and the other to recognize what just happened. I think it is very helpful. But what I see more now is people using that for dealing with strong emotions. And I did that too, right? Just want to point that out there. I'm not putting my finger on anyone else there, and I might have even told that or suggested that in the past. But as I healed and as I moved along, I realized that they were detours, right? It's completely unnecessary. What actually is a lot more effective in that moment is to pause and allow the emotion to be as it is without us making a mental story around this, right? This shouldn't be like this. I've already done so many healing um, therapy weeks, whatever workshops, whatever you're doing, group therapy, or you spent years on this, studying this, doing this, practicing this, having all these routines in place and things that shouldn't be happening anymore. Those kind of things, or this is too much for me to handle, right? All these kind of things that they're thoughts that are coming up, and they're making it unnecessarily harder or creating more pain. And you say that all that actually needs to happen is for us to have all this trapped energy, all these trapped emotions in our body, to allow them to move through without resistance in a sense, right? And grounding to me does the opposite, right? It almost makes it wrong for me to have that emotion. And I get it in a sense that if you're having a 90-10 reaction, right, when 90% of the reaction comes, or the fuel of it, the energy, it is from a past experience, or from decades of experiences of people treating you unfairly, or being rude to you, or judging you, or constantly being uh, abandoned or excluded and things like that, right? There can be decades of that. So, and there might be just even a stranger in this moment not acknowledging you or something, and you have this 90-10 reaction, right? A full-blown reaction to this, and that's what we call 90-10. And in that sense, the grounding is more like the putting that into perspective. It's like, oh, actually the reactivity that I'm having comes from the past, but we really want, or that's just how I see it now for myself. When I let myself have these strong emotions, not actually towards that person in that moment, because obviously it's not his or her fault that I have such a huge reaction to this, but even afterwards, when I'm home or somewhere quiet where I feel safe enough to kind of go and resist, like, oh wow, that sense of I am not good enough, right? That was a big one for me. Not that I can never do anything right, that that being a failure, or that I'm being unlovable, and things. I don't know what your theme is, to allow myself to feel that without trying to alter it, without trying to make it wrong, just like an energy passing through the body, right? I hope I'm making sense here, but as always, please leave some questions below, right? Because I will address them in videos if I can't do it in the comments, because I think it's important. Oh, I don't know why I feel it. I don't know. It's sometimes, you know, I even have to be honest with myself. When I get a reaction to information that is available out there, that I know that this will take people on a detour, right? That's so unnecessary. They don't need to do that. And then realizing why this is, right? Because I took so many detours, right? Myself, right? And maybe this is just meant to be like that, and then if so, then just ignore that video. But if it strikes something within you, and you realize, oh yes, I've been using these grounding techniques to avoid the feeling of anger, or the feeling of anxiety, or the feeling of grief, to come back down. Or sometimes it's even joy, right? For some people, they feel like they're not worthy of actually having so much joy and enthusiasm and excitement, right? That they have to dampen that down, and they need to ground themselves again, right? Especially if you've worked in the autism and ADHD kind of field. A lot of times there's a lot of work around that to help clients ground like that. And I always thought, well, what's wrong with that, right? Why? But it's just a society, I think, not allowing for big emotions. I don't know, what do you think about that? Isn't it? There's a certain level or a certain way of expressing it, of emotion, that's deemed okay, and if you're outside of that, then that's not okay. Then you better do something about that, right? I want to disrupt that in some way. So anyway, so that's my little rant for the weekend while I'm out here in this beautiful part in nature. Well, looking forward to hearing from you. Bye.